Thanks again for tuning into the Texas Scratch King channel. We hope you enjoy this interview. Please remember to subscribe, like and share this in every video. If you value the content, it will not cost a thing, but it will give me the inspiration to keep scratching for more content to keep you entertained. Another thing, make sure to hit the bell notification icon so you will know when a new video drops. Now let us begin. Interview with DogMan legend Norman Hooten. Best remembered for his champion Butcher Boy dog. Where and when were you born? I was born in Lampasas County in the rural ranching country of Central Texas on March 16, 1941. When did you get started in the game dogs and who had the most influence in you? I first started in the game dogs in 1967 and the man who had the most influence in me in the dogs was Maurice Carver. When did you get your first dog and who was the dog out of? My first dog was an 8-week-old pup bred off the Heinzel Tudor line that was so popular in those days. This dog developed into the famous dog known as Hooten's champion Butcher Boy. He was sired by a son of the great Fitzwater's champion Goldie, a Heinzel-bred dog, and out of a daughter of the great Tudor's champion Spike, a devastating 4-time winner. Tudor's Spike was sired by Tudor's Debo and whelped by Gordon's Red Lady. Their dam, Womack's Mert, was sired by Fitzwater's champion Goldie and out of a double Debo bitch. Bates Susie. What bloodlines were popular when you were starting out? The most popular bloodlines of the day when I first started with the game dogs were those predominant in the south and southwest areas of the USA, the Heinzel, Colby and Tudor bloodlines interwoven among the three. Which bloodline did you choose and why? I stumbled onto Butcher Boy, a Heinzel Tudor cross down from the great pit winners and producers named in question 3. So in effect I didn't choose the bloodline. It chose me. As the years have gone by I have pretty well stayed with the bloodline that came down off Tudor's Debo strain. This bloodline, which produced such all-time greats as Carver's Black Widow, Tudor's champion Spike, Hooten's champion Butcher Boy, Walling's Bullison and Clayton's Eli Jr., and many, many more far too numerous to list, has stayed strong and vital for well over 35 years or so. And I simply have not found one that produces better percentages of game. Hard-mouthed dogs with good ability. If I had, then I would have changed my breeding program. What was your first match and what was the outcome? My first match was in 1969 with Hooten's Butcher Boy, who had developed into a thoroughly tested dog that was game and extremely hard-mouthed. This was a team effort on both sides with Maurice Carver. Myself and Butcher Boy matched into the opposing team of Earl Tudor, Sam Kennedy, Danny Burton and Kennedy's Booger Red, a great 2-time winner. Butcher Boy killed Booger Red in the pit in 36 minutes. Booger Red was one of those rare, truly dead game dogs that had to be killed to be stopped. What was the greatest match you went to and why? The greatest match I ever witnessed was champion Butcher Boy's last match and win in September of 1973. Making Butcher Boy a 4-time winner when he defeated the great dead game Stinson and Perry Sampson, a 2-time winner. Butcher Boy had been retired after his third and championship win over Corn Smoky in May 1972. And had been treated for heartworms twice. He was 6 years old in 1973 and Sampson was a fresh, strong 30-month-old dog that had won 2 over high-class dogs in short order. One of them being a dog of Maurice Carver's at 56 pounds. Maurice came to me and almost got down on his knees trying to sweet-talk me into bringing Butcher Boy out of retirement to go into the Sampson dog, stating rightfully so that Butcher Boy was the only dog that could defeat the mighty Sampson. I finally agreed and the match was made for one of the last of the old-time conventions. A show that had, I believe, 12 matches on the card. All of them high-class, fast-lane dogs. The two mighty giants met at 57 pounds for $1,500 a side and Butcher Boy was the underdog and down dog for the first 45 minutes or so. I was beginning to wonder if I had done the old dog a disservice by bringing him out of retirement for the match. The younger, stronger Sampson was without doubt the best dog that Butcher Boy had ever met. And at a time when Butcher Boy was no longer in his prime. But he slowly started to come even with Sampson and by the hour mark ever so slowly started to bite Sampson down. At 125 Sampson tried to make his last scratch. A dead game stumbling scratch where he finally fell over still trying to crawl to Butcher Boy. But was counted out. Butcher Boy was declared the winner and you could have heard the shouts of victory from his backers 50 miles away. Butcher Boy made a game tail scratch towards the down and dying dead game Sampson. Sampson died shortly after the match. And sadly, Butcher Boy passed away some 4 hours later. Ironically, I was short of cash at the time of the match so I only collected $100 for my share of the bet. The big-time gamblers had come down out of Chicago and had bet $20,000 at 2-1 odds in their favor. They collected $40,000 and they didn't give me a biscuit. And I lost a dog that money could not buy. But he was a bulldog and he died the way all good bulldogs would if they had a choice. Giving his all for his owner and his own heart and spirit. Butcher Boy was posthumously awarded Best Male Dog of Show for his efforts in the match. And this match is still talked about with awe by the old-timers who were there. You have been associated with many great dogs. Perhaps you would like to give the readers some information about them. A few great match dogs that I have been fortunate enough to have hands-on experience with are as follows. Hooten's Champion Butcher Boy 4X winner and Best of Show winner. Carver's One Eye. This great old brood bitch was given to me by Maurice Carver in 1969 at 13 years of age. She was double-bred Black Widow heavy in the Debo bloodline. She had produced some exceptional dogs prior to my getting her and I bred her to Butcher Boy twice. Her milk went bad with the first litter and all but one female died. I raised this pup on a baby bottle and later sent her to my friend Enrique Morfin of Mexico City. The second breeding of One Eye to Butcher Boy produced 4 pups. 3 females and 1 male. 2 of the females died, leaving a buckskin female with a black mask that I named Bandit. And the male, a red with white makings and flesh-colored nose that I named Hooten Snake. Bandit was later stolen off my yard and never recovered. Sometime later I had a run of bad luck and was short of cash, so I hooked One Eye to Red Walling, the owner of Bullison, who lived in the Houston, Texas area. It was during the time that Red had her that she was bred to Bullison. The breeding that produced the bitch hides Bloody Sunday. The way that breeding came about is somewhat interesting in that my good friend Bobby Hall and I got somewhat inebriated on good Tennessee whiskey one night and decided to make the breeding by the light of the moon. Now, both Bullison and One Eye were very hard to breed as they were so very aggressive towards other dogs. So one can imagine the difficulty Bobby and I had getting that breeding done without having a full-scale war on our hands. In view of our condition at the time. And the fact that we were literally making the breeding in the light of the moon. We finally got it done by making a muzzle out of a pair of pantyhose that we found in Bobby's car. Which is another story. We used this homemade muzzle on One Eye. Later I got back in my feet and paid One Eye out of hock and got her back. She was later killed in a kennel fight in my yard while I was on the road and out of town. A dead game. Hard old bulldog to the very end. Hooten Snake. This was the only surviving male pup from the second and last breeding of Butcher Boy to One Eye. My deal with Maurice was that he was to get a male pup from the first litter of the breeding of Butcher Boy to One Eye. And as all but one female died from the first litter. And Snake was the only male from the second litter. He had to be the one. Boy did I hate to give up that pup. He was a big, healthy, strong, big-boned pup. And of course the only male. But a deal is a deal, and as there was a big Labor Day party scheduled at Maurice's house for the first weekend in September 1969. I decided to take Snake to him when I went. When I arrived at Maurice's, the party was in full swing with dogmen there from all over Texas and other states. I walked in and handed Snake to Maurice. He already knew that Snake was the only male from the litter, and when I got ready to return home a couple of days later, Maurice, being the kind of man he was, reached down and picked Snake up and handed him to me, stating, I'd never take a man-only male pup from him. So I took him home with me and he grew to be a big aggressive acting dog. Though we never looked at him. He was later bred to Arts Missy one time while he was on Maurice's yard when he was keeping him for me while I was on the road. As there was only one Hooten Snake and he was bred once to Arts Missy. One must assume that he produced the Great Wood Snooty, the deep game 2-time winner that later became an ROM producing sire. The pedigree shown by the ADBA related to Hooten Snake is incorrect, as it shows Snake's sire to be Carver's Ironhead and his dam to be Carver's Miss Spike. This mix-up caused quite a controversy in the late 1980s when I attempted to set the record straight and have the true breeding of Snake recorded by the ADBA. Snake was later sold to Bobby Hall but died from an adverse reaction to a worm medicine while on Bobby's yard. Carver's Rastus. A big black dog down from the Debo Black Widow bloodline. Maurice and I rolled Rastus with Butcher Boy during Butcher Boy's early schooling days, and he was a very hard-mouthed dog with lots of ability. I helped Maurice finish out the schooling of Rastus by handling him in several roles. He was later matched into the Tater Dog in California. A match that went 2 hours with Rastus finally losing both the match and his life. He was another truly dead game dog from the yard of Maurice Carver. Indian Sonny's Bolio. This famous dog was raised on my yard after Maurice sent him to me to be hand-raised as I had done with Butcher Boy. When he was about 6 months old I started taking him when I ran my trapline and let him kill varmints. He was beautiful. A very intense dog. And was one that would grab and kill anything that got within reach. Including puppies. I tried every way I could to talk Maurice into letting me have Bolio. But he later sold him as best I remember to Bennett Clayton, who later sold him to Indian Sunny in California. The rest is history, as he became a famous sire in his own right. Carver's Pistol and Carver's Ironhead. Ironhead never received the recognition as a fighting dog that he should have. And though well known in later years as a producer, Ironhead was a very hard-mouthed, honest, game bulldog. He won 4 matches, although was never credited with his rightfully earned championship. In late 1968, Maurice called me and asked me if I would come up and help him work Ironhead and Pistol for some matches scheduled in Monterrey, Mexico. So I went and worked with Ironhead and Pistol during the last 2 matches. Ironhead and Pistol were as different as night and day, and were prime examples of how each dog must be worked differently, as suited to his or her own personality. Ironhead was a dead honest, straight-ahead bulldog with no fancy frills or idiosyncrasies. He just went out and did the job, whether being worked or in the pit. Nothing fancy about him. But boy could he bite. About 2 nights before we were to leave on the Mexico trip, a young dog got off the chain and of course went straight into Ironhead, biting him deep in the shoulder. Maurice and I heard the commotion on the yard about 2 o'clock in the morning, and finally got them separated. But Ironhead had suffered deep muscle bites in his left shoulder and was crippled. The next morning Maurice went to a vet and got some bute and dropped a tab on Ironhead. A couple of hours later you couldn't even tell he had been bit except for the swelling. Pistol was a different type of dog, as he was temperamental, and was an extremely weird little dog. He would not work a treadmill very well, so he had to be handwalked for the most part. He too was a devastating, hard-biting dog, though about 10 pounds lighter than Ironhead. When we got to Monterrey and settled in our rooms, we had the usual dog talk in Maurice's room. I was watching Pistol and he was sitting in the middle of the room staring at a picture on the wall. After about 20 minutes he slowly turned his head and picked out another spot on the wall and stared at it for a while. He kept this up until he had twisted his head almost completely around. Then slowly turned back to the original spot and started it all over again. The next morning, about 2 hours before the match with Ironhead, Maurice dropped a tab of bute on him and we went to the pit site, a bullfighting ring high in the mountains above Monterrey. Ironhead was matched into a big brindle bitch belonging to Enrique Morfin of Mexico City, and she quickly realized that she was in for the fight of her life. At about the 20-minute mark she got Ironhead by the lower jaw and held on with that hold for about 45 minutes, breaking the lower jaw in the process. Ironhead just kept working around until he finally worked free, and as testimony to his hard mouth, killed the bitch in the pit in just over an hour. Some 20 minutes after getting free of the jaw hold, the match with Pistol never came off. Maurice and the owner of his opponent had agreed to weigh the day before. And of course Maurice fed Pistol ice cream and a little extra meat. So when the Mexican owner, the son of a general in the Mexican army, decided at pit side that he wanted to weigh in again, Pistol was over the weight. The tactic caused quite a stir with the opposing parties. All of a sudden we looked up and found that we were surrounded by soldiers armed with machine guns. Maurice finally agreed to pay the forfeit, and when the Mexican reached to take the money, Maurice let it drop to the ground. A supreme insult to the Mexicans. We were told by the Mexican general to gather our dogs and our belongings and leave within the hour, which we did as fast as possible. We sweated it out all the way to the border, thinking we might be ambushed at any minute or at least stopped and our dogs taken. We made it out okay though, and I have never returned to Mexico for a dogfight, though I still have some very good friends and fellow dogmen there. Carver's Pistol, the best I can remember, was a 2-time winner and later became well known as a producing sire. Just 2 more good dogs from Maurice's yard that I was fortunate enough to have hands-on experience with. Hall and Hooten's Jailhouse and her sister Jeanette. These 2 fine females were sent to me by Bobby Hall as pups in the summer of 1984. They were out of a litter sired by Mercer's Spring Sun, a 2-time winner down from the Bullison line out of Bobby's great grand champion Princess, another Bullison bred dog that was a 7-time winner. Both Jeanette and Jailhouse were black with a little white on their chest and rear toes. And though Jailhouse was my favorite, both were similar in attitude and nature. I hand-raised them both in the same way I hand-raised other good dogs for myself and Maurice Carver. Jeanette was matched one time in 1987, losing in deep game fashion to the great grand champion Spooky in Florida, and named Game Dog of the Year in 1987 for her losing efforts. Jailhouse was a devastating nose dog, matched twice, winning both in about an hour each before being sold and exported to England, where I am told she produced some good dogs and at least one other pit winner before she died of an incurable disease. Hooten's Headhunter. A big brindle dog from a sire-daughter breeding Cool Hand Luke back to his daughter Belle Star that produced Headhunter and a very punishing bitch. Hooten's Chula. out of a litter of 6. Headhunter won his first match at 19 months of age at 52 pounds over a well-experienced 3-year-old dog. This match was in 1994 and Headhunter was declared the winner in 55 minutes after his opponent tried to jump the pit wall. Hooten's Pistol. A littermate brother to Belle Star. And the dam of Headhunter. Pistol was sired by Hooten's Cool Hand Luke and out of Hooten's Miss Bolero, who was a daughter of the famous 4-time winner champion Chinaman Rom and the game. Hard-mouthed 4-time winning bitch Fat Bill's Bolero. Pistol's only match was in Mexico and he was picked up ahead in that match and showing deep gameness because it was feared that if he was left down longer, that even if he won, he would be lost. The match went 2 hours. Pistol has become a producing sire of deep game pit winners that show good ability in mouth. Hooten's Miss Pistol. A very high-class, fast-lane bitch that is a one-time winner at the time of this writing. She is an extremely hard-mouthed, foul-fighting bitch that goes deep into the stifle and gut of her opponents. She won her first match in 11 minutes, defeating a one-time winner and receiving the Best of Show award for her efforts. There are many more good dogs that I could discuss. Some that achieved their greatness in combat and some that made their mark as producers of good, hard-mouthed game dogs. The last 2 I will mention are my good producing brood dogs. Hooten's Cool Hand Luke and his daughter. Hooten's Belle Star. Both proven producers. Hooten's Cool Hand Luke. A hard-mouthed, very game dog that was unmatched due to his bad habit of chewing his chain. A habit that destroyed his teeth at an early age. He was looked at twice. Very hard, and Luke has produced several good dogs. And a couple of very deep game dogs from a limited number of breedings. Hooten's Belle Star. The brindle littermate sister to Pistol and Spike has been bred only twice as she has different heat cycles. Both times she was bred to her sire Cool Hand Luke. And both times she had 6 pups. 3 males and 3 females. The first litter produced Hooten's Headhunter and his sister. A very hard-mouthed punishing bitch. Hooten's Chula. The second litter has not yet reached adult age. Belle Star has been looked at several times and though not an outstanding match quality dog, she has demonstrated quality gameness. An average mouth and most importantly of all is a proven producer of game dogs with good ability. What other dogmen have in your opinion had a major influence on the dog game? There are several top dogmen that come to mind immediately. And I certainly don't mean to offend anyone I don't mention. For there are many good breeders, conditioners and handlers from the past and present that have in their own way affected and influenced the dog game to what it is today. But, in answer to your question, I can only relay those who stand out in my mind. Many of whom I have had the opportunity and pleasure of knowing personally. Men like John Colby, Howard Heinzel, Earl Tudor, Maurice Carver, Floyd Boudreau, Fat Bill, Ed and James Crenshaw, Don Mayfield, Bobby Hall, and the list could go on. Though many dogmen may tend to disagree with me, I offer this thought. There are basically 2 categories of dogmen: dog fighters who are experts in the field of conditioning and handling, and dog breeders who have the God-given ability to make breedings between individuals that consistently produce outstanding individuals that carry a particular line with the traits that everyone desires. Gameness and ability. In many cases both categories are in one man. But in my opinion it is the dog breeders that have the most influence on the breed in the long run. For it is they that perpetuate the desired characteristics of the breed to the dog that produced that good winning dog. Quite often the dog fighter is not the least bit interested in the breeding of a certain winning dog. The breeder always is. What do you think of the game today? And are there any major differences from when you first started out? In the almost 30 years I have been associated with the breed, I have seen various peaks and valleys caused by many different circumstances. But always, at the core of the sport were those who had allowed the breed to become the focal point of their lives and who have demonstrated the honesty and tenacity of the breed they love, admire and respect. There are many more numbers of people involved with the breed today. But more does not always mean better. When I first started out, the days of the old-time conventions were in full swing. There would be 10 to 15 matches scheduled between top-name dogs representing the top breeders, owners, conditioners and handlers in the nation. These shows might, as often did, take 2 days or 3 days to complete, and we had the opportunity to meet and get to know on a personal basis other dogmen from all parts of the United States and foreign countries. All that started to change, and drastically so, in the late 70s and on through the 80s and 90s. A change brought about the increased numbers of people who were not true dog people, but were people who jumped on the bandwagon to feed their ego and their pocketbooks by being associated with the breed of dog that is more honest by far than many of those people were.